You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys, and co-hosting with me as always is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. Missing in action this week is John, who's on vacation, but don't worry guys, he'll be back next week to make sure we don't forget about guys like Karl Anthony Towns and Michael Porter Jr.
Where did Johnny go?
I think he went to Florida.
Disney World?
Disney World.
Oh,
yeah.
Lucky guy.
With the kids. Yeah, seriously. Hope he's having a good time. But we do have a special guest interview later in this episode. His name is William Chong, who owns Dolly's Toys and Games, located in the city we love, Toronto, Canada. We're looking forward to getting the perspective of a hobby shop owner on what's going on in the sports card world. And I believe he recently went, I don't know if you know this, Hyung, to the top industry conference in Arizona earlier this month. I think it's the first with Fanatics having taken over. So it'll be really interesting. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to hear what William learned from that conference and possibly get some early inside info on what we can expect in the hobby this year. But before we get into the interview, off the top, speaking of Fanatics, there was a big piece of news that they launched Zerocool, a trading card company specifically built around pop culture, art, and entertainment. And their first product launch is in partnership with Gary Vaynerchuk, who we've talked about before, and specifically his NFT project called VFriends. What Zerocool is offering is the trading card set of that NFT project. There are only 800 boxes available to the public, and as we record this, they just wrapped up their 3-day Dutch blind auction to determine who gets a box and for what price. Now, what I want to focus on today is your thoughts, Hyung, on the launch of Zerocool, and generally on the idea of expanding the trading card industry beyond sports and into entertainment and pop culture.
You know me, I do appreciate it, obviously, but the hobbyist in me and the hobbyist in everybody, they're going to run far away from this. They're going to almost see it as, you know, this is not where the hobby is, right? So I see kind of a division. People who like, you know, fast forward thinking with NFTs and people who don't think that NFT should belong in the same kind of category as sports cards, right? So it's going to be a tough one, I think, for people to buy on, especially, I believe Jeff Wilson just launched his a couple weeks ago or last month that didn't do too so hot. So I think a lot of people are kind of skeptical on that whole NFT and cards because, you know, we see it objectively. We see it as, okay, where can it go? Are there businesses that are going to be failing? Absolutely. Right. But we're talking about a technology that we don't know what we have until we kind of, tap into that area and see its potential. Right. So sure. From the objective purpose, I'm always bullish, you know, on, you know, new things. Right. It just fast forwards, pushes us into a better situation in terms of the market. Right. So I think in the overall perspective, it's great. I think in the micro lens, I know people aren't going to, you know, buy into it, but I think it's going to sell out. I think it's going to do well. But yeah, I'm not completely sold on it either, just because it's just like Gary V's, I guess, new like art, his whole right. deal, right? So I don't know if there's going to be a huge demand for that, but then he has the audience, so
for sure,
you know what I mean.
And
it's going to sell out.
And he's a great marketer, right? So
right, exactly. So
there'll be hype behind it. But even beyond this NFT / trading card project of VFriends, what do you think about, you know, Zerocool branching off into like the entertainment aspect of trading cards?
So my understanding is Zerocool is almost like the platform that and Gary V was the first project they launched on that platform, right. And they're gonna, like, it's not saying that that's gonna be kind of like it, right? This is just the first project, and then the platform's gonna host other, you know, NFT projects that are kind of different.
it's not even an NFT project.
Oh,
it could
right,
be like
right.
it could be like a movie trading card set.
Right. No, I'm all for that because I think that's where the industry can go, because pop culture is huge when you look back at even when people like Biggie, when he was alive, having a Biggie autograph, think
Right.
about stuff like that where, a lot of people, still listen to his music, right? So I think there's a lot of potential in areas that we've never, touched upon before. So I'm always bullish on ideas. Whether they're going to stick, who knows, right? But I think over time, when there's scarcity, and there's a demand for it, that it could be a good marriage in some instances.
Sure. I like, me personally, I like that they kind of divided that part out. Like people were wondering, now that they bought Topps, will Topps get into making entertainment type cards exclusively? And now Topps we can just rely on them to do what they've always done well. Baseball cards, and they do have Formula One and other kind of niche sports.
I think they did get into that area a bit with, like, if you rip like Transcendent, like really, really, really high end product, you get like Woodrow Wilson autos, like
right.
it has nothing to do with baseball, but like you're pulling some some awesome stuff, right? So hey, I think there's potential.
Right. It's like Allen and Ginter too, right? The random, subsets. But like the fact that it tells me that they're really focused on this as a separate entity. Like they obviously think there's potential to make money. That's number one too, right? So yeah, I mean, pop culture is always going to be relevant. So I'm sure there'll be some kind of demand for whatever product they launch next.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like there's going to be projects that are hits. There's going to be projects that are busts. You can't kind of judge it based on that, right? So that's where I see a lot of the old school mind, like the true hobbyists that, collect for the passion of collecting. And it really doesn't have to do with necessarily monetary value, right? They're more upset that they can't get the cards because there's people out there that, are just flipping, right? So they see it as that, where it's another, there's gonna be bag holders, and there could be, but that you could go. It's a can of worms that you could go in any industry, kind of, with crypto and the whole deal, right? So in the objective lens, I'm all for it. We'll see where this goes, because who else is doing anything about it, essentially, right? And it seems like the only complainers are the ones that aren't really doing anything to make the hobby any better anyways, right? So we all have opinions, exactly.
They just want the status quo, right. And I should mention that Josh Luber is behind this too. So we got a guy that's really into trading cards. And you know what? Hopefully we can learn more about zerocool. I'm sure they're going to be a bigger player in the industry, in the hobby, and so we'll try to see if we can get a connection with them and have them on the show at some point. But yeah, something to look out for, and we'll see how it goes. All right, with that said, let's play our interview now with William Chong of Dolly's Toys and Games. Okay, so we have another special guest interview today. Like we mentioned briefly at the top of the show, his name is William Chong, who owns Dolly's Toys and Games here in Toronto. I know his business is just a handful of hobby stores I know of personally that's been around a while through the ups and downs of the hobby. And if you look up reviews for Dolly's on Google, they have an amazing score with hundreds and hundreds of positive comments from past and current customers. So if any of you listeners are in the greater Toronto area, or if you plan to visit TO, for many of our international listeners, you got to drop by Dolly's. It's well worth it. And they do have multiple locations as well. And if you come by during the Sports Card Expo, Dolly's is a staple at the biggest local card shows. I always see them there. So without further ado, William, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Clark. Thank you.
All right. So I've only met William a few times now personally, and he's always been a great source of information about anything hobby related. But Hyung, you've been in touch with William several times, right? Mostly as a customer yourself?
Mostly as a addicted customer, yes.
Okay, so you know what? Let's start from the beginning. I'm always curious as to how hobby shop owners got into the business, because, as a kid, this would be my dream job, right? Ripping packs open. spending all my allowance money. But well, you actually did it. So how did that come about?
It's actually purely a coincidence as well. I was a big collector of trading cards growing up. So Dolly's is kind of a staple in Scarborough on the east end of Toronto, and I've been coming to the store since I was 8 years old.
Hmm.
And I went to school. I mean, I went on to university, graduated from there, and then had a job. And then the owners wanted to retire, so they approached my brother about taking over the shop, running things like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon first. We decided to take over. I was at the store, and then it started becoming less of kind of a turnkey business and a hobby, one of those things to do on the side. Became more of my life and my business. So we also got very lucky with sports. 15, 16, Connor McDavid came along. 16, 17, we had the first draft pick, Austin Matthews. So Raptors started doing very well, making a big run in 18, 19, 19, 20. So I'm a big sports fan to begin with. So I've always been collecting sports, and the opportunity to take over the store just fell in my lap. I took it over just kind of for fun, and then the entire industry really took off during the pandemic. So I got very lucky. Yeah, but it was just a purely coincidence, chance. It wasn't like I always wanted to open a card shop growing up. I've always just been a collector, and it's been a huge hobby of mine since I was probably 10, 11 years old. And it just kind of just fell in my lap, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. So, sorry, when did you actually take over the business?
We took over probably about 6 years ago now. 6 years, slowly, more and more became majority owners of the place, and then took over. More recently, a few years before the pandemic. But I think it's been 6 years now. I don't know. Time flies.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's been at least, I would say, 6 years now.
Okay. So like you said, you've been part of the hobby for a long time, both as a customer and now as a hobby shop owner. What would you say are some of the things that's changed in the hobby over the years?
Oof. I got in at a very lucky time, I think. So obviously, being from Toronto and being from Canada, hockey is the number one sport and the number one sports card to collect. Back then, when I first started, I'm a huge Jays fan. I love baseball like Young. I'm a huge baseball guy. I love the Jays. I'm big Raptors fan since '95. So I didn't really follow hockey as much. So one of the biggest changes in the last 4 years. So I got a little puppy with me too.
No problem.
Barking. Last 3-4 years would be a shift to kind of how much more people are collecting basketball, hockey, football, soccer, F1. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge shift collecting, I think, a variety of different cards now, rather than being like going to a card show, you go to the expo, it's like every booth is the same, hockey. Now you have guys that are collecting only baseball, a ton of, kind of different cards. You're even starting to see gaming cards like Pokemon and things like that at these shows, rather than just all hockey. That's probably one of the bigger changes. I think a greater diversity of collectors and different sports.
Yeah. I was going to say, we always joke when we go to these local card shows, like it's always hockey in Toronto. And so like actually when we went to the card show this past year, it's still predominantly hockey in Canada, to tell you the truth. But your booth is probably the most diverse in terms of the sports and in terms of the cards you guys offer. I was going to ask you, when I started collecting, I don't know if it's the same for you, Hyung, like it was 95% sports cards and like 5% something else. But then when I got back into the hobby as an adult, it just completely flipped. It's 95% Yu-Gi-Oh! And then there's a small sliver of sports cards
right.
at local shops. I don't know if that was the same for you, Hyung.
100%. Absolutely, yeah.
But I guess the good thing about the hobby now is like everything's online, so like you can look for the cards you like, right, and find whatever you want on the internet. So that's always a bonus. Have you guys adapted to that as well, like having a website presence for your shop?
Yeah. We kind of had to change and adapt quickly during, especially the pandemic, when we had to close. So we have huge presence on eBay, at Dolly's Cards. We have a minor presence on Instagram, and then we do a lot of our gaming on our own direct website, dollys.ca.
Mm-hmm.
We do breaks. For those that have gone to our downtown location in Toronto, you would have met Ray. Ray runs breaks on our website, on Facebook, through Instagram. So that's one of the biggest changes, actually, probably is great group breaking. And, it's a huge kind of shift in our hobby now versus going to stores and opening, a case. You can now just join a case break or a group break online. The group break could be taking place in the Philippines or in Dallas or wherever it may be. But you're kind of part of this community, this greater global community of collectors where you can open and share kind of that same experience of ripping packs and going through cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Group breaking is huge, and it incorporates that gambling culture too that people people love, right? Like I know for sure Hyung is into it.
As we speak right now, I'm in a break that I can't even watch.
It's gotten to the point where it's like you put the money down on the table and you
Yeah.
When I got into group breaks, man, I'm telling you, 15-16 cup was one of my first big breaks.
Wow.
And I could not stop watching them. Every single night when there was a 15-16 cup break, I would be watching. And
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I got Edmonton, I was just ecstatic. Like, come on, McDavid, something like that. And back then, an RPA was only worth like 10K, 15K. Now it's like, I don't know, man, a 9.5 is probably 9.5 is probably like 200,000-300,000.
Yeah, stratospheric for sure.
That's crazy.
You mentioned it briefly, but I'm curious about what you thought would happen to the hobby when the pandemic first hit. In hindsight, we see how it actually caused a major boom of the hobby with everyone isolated at home in front of their computers buying cards on the internet. But were you first nervous that business would die down significantly when stores were forced to close?
Yeah. When all businesses were forced to close. It's funny because I was actually watching basketball. I was watching that. I think it was Pelicans versus Utah. I think that was the game on a weeknight in March. Actually, last year. It's almost been 2 years actually. That game got canceled, and then like hockey got canceled, and then I like baseball. Everything started getting canceled after that basketball game, if you guys recall. Yeah. So I was obviously very worried because no live sports. No one's gonna have interest in cards. First month, I was panicking. I sold off a lot of stuff. I sold off a ton of cards, a ton of product, thinking that we may not survive this. It was kind of the end of the world, Armageddon vibes. But going into it later on, 4 or 5 months into it, you could see that the breaks were picking up and everything was kind of still going very, very strong. So we just kind of wrote it out and continued with business as usual. And then we noticed that basketball first took the huge boom, and then it was football, and then it went back to even more basketball. Like basketball just kept going. That was kind of the catalyst of everything. And then Topps baseball stuff started really taking off. And then finally, I think more recently, the last year, it was hockey that was really taking off. So yeah. I mean, I of course we were worried. We were very, very, kind of pessimistic about the whole situation. But I'm also, it's weird because I have my business, but I'm also a collector of a lot of, I PC, a lot of Leafs, a lot of Raptors guys. So I kept my collection in place and, end up doing pretty well with it still.
Nice. Yeah. Like, I don't know if anyone could have predicted how the hobby would have gone this past 2 years, but it definitely worked out.
Gary V, I was on it, man, the whole time, I think a lot of people ended up, just being fine. Like after the hysteria and all the toilet paper went, people went from toilet paper to like Prizm basketball, so it was pretty crazy. Lysol, remember how crazy Lysol was?
I don't know.
Going to Costco and getting Lysol was like hitting a gold mine. Yeah.
Totally remember.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, off the air, you mentioned you actually went down to the Topps Industry Conference. I think it was in Arizona. The first one, I believe, was with Fanatics having taken over the brand, right? Did you learn anything interesting or insightful while you were at the conference?
This is probably the third or fourth Topps conference I've been to. Okay. Topps has been has had the baseball license for, I don't even know how many years continuously now. And one thing we did learn that Fanatics will try to do is just keep it status quo. I think based on our conversations and then the conference, that they're really out there. Like at first, obviously, you see the business model that Fanatics is in, and what they've said about the hobby, wanting to kind of cut out some of the middlemen, things like that. And I think what being at this conference has helped us as retailers realize is like, well, it's going to be more of a partnership. I mean, there obviously is going to be some changes. I think there's going to be some investments into like retail spaces and stores. I mean, going into the 21st century, obviously, data and having a nice layout of a retail store is going to be very important, right?
Sure.
I think our hobbies and our industry as a whole has really been pushed to the forefront with all these kind of big collectors, celebrity collecting, and like expensive cards being sold. Every other week you see a $3 million to $5 million card being sold. So right. I think it's about time a lot of owners and collectors and retailers invest back into their own business and kind of not only have a brick and mortar shop, but have a really, really nice shop. And that's what we're looking into too. It doesn't take too much to really kind of invest and renovate, make your store stand out from the rest of them. You've been to hobby shops and comic book shops for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and they've kind of stayed the same. Not a lot of, right. I guess it would be not as welcoming, I guess, as some of the more modern retail stores. Yeah. So that's probably one of the key things moving forward is like, how do you differentiate a store that's been open for a month, a week versus a store that's been open 20, 30 years. And, these stores got to have to catch up with some of these newer ones that, I mean, there are a ton of new stores. I'm sure you guys have noticed as well. Yeah. A lot of new players in the game, a lot of breakers, brick and mortar stores. So, I think everyone's trying to streamline that and make sure that customers that are buying cards from one state or one country has the same type of experience as another.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I know it's always about evolving, and you guys have certainly did that. Like every time I come in, you always have people that are there to play card games, those trading card games. So that's something I didn't see back in the day, right? So
yeah. One of our main things, the reason why we ended up taking over is we wanted to continue to support like gaming and tournaments and having a community space for people to come and open their cards or play in tournaments and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm a huge sports fan, but Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, those type of tournaments, those kind of gaming is our bread and butter and what we encourage the most of.
Yeah, cool. I had some rapid fire questions about Hyung. I was wondering if you had any questions for Will.
Yeah, I guess as a hobbyist, I see a divide with like new technology. The true hobbyists hate NFTs. They hate that direction that I guess the card industry is going with new technologies, blockchain technologies, how, crypto can play with cards. What do you feel, I guess, where the industry is going? Are you bullish? Do you like the changes that are coming? Are you hesitant? What's your take on, I guess, the future of the hobby?
That's a tough one. I guess my take is I'm still undecided overall. I haven't leaned either way. I mean, I think what's going to end up happening is that we as collectors and hobbyists and in our industry, sports cards overall, we're going to have to adapt to it. NFTs are here to stay. Crypto, they're so kind of intertwined. People are buying cards with crypto. They're exchanging, NFTs to go buy physical cards. A lot of physical cards come with NFTs now, right. And you're going to see the same with memorabilia. One of one memorabilia, like right. the same thing happening. Carvin is doing that. The one NFT with Sotheby's, I think, an auction, and it comes with, the physical warm up jersey cool. from Kobe's 81-point game, I think. Sweet, so yeah. a lot of kind of cross-border, NFT and physical collectible stuff, but everyone's asking for utility. What if you have this Top Shot or this NFT? What is it going to provide for you in real life? And I think that once there's more utility coming from those type of collectibles, you're going to see people get into it more. So it's here to stay. I think people have to embrace it. I don't see it going away. So the best thing is to kind of familiarize yourself with it, learn about the blockchain, and then try and incorporate that into collectibles, because I'm sure you're aware of it. Like, it's just impossible to ignore. I mean, you know, at the beginning, you kind of just laughed at Top Shots, and that was technically probably one of the
True.
first NFTs in our industry that really blew up. But now it's everywhere, and it's really taken over. So.
No, that's awesome. That's pretty much the same line of thought. Like we discussed this in our pod. So this was truly like candid. Like I just wanted to know, from a hobby shop owner, because a lot of the hobbyists think a different way. So it kind of gives an unbiased take on kind of like where and what we're talking about.
Challenge is like, a lot of people don't understand it, and if you don't understand, you can't make a conscious decision, or at least a comment about what the future kind of holds. So at the very least, if you're really interested in it, or you're big into the hobby, you should understand what it is and have an idea of what it is. Maybe 20-30 years ago, it was like the internet or Instagram or something like that, right? A lot of people were like, oh, well, what is this? And it seems so foreign, so they try and avoid it. But now it's such like social media, and even us having this conversation through a podcast on Zoom would have been such a foreign concept to anyone 20-30 years ago. They'd be like, what are you talking about, right? And we've learned to embrace it and kind of turn it to our advantage, and here we are now. Look, the three of us talking over Zoom.
You're absolutely right. Just curious, you mentioned like there's a lot of competition now with the boom of the hobby. More people are coming into the space. Are you feeling it, like in terms of allocation of product? Is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, that's one of the scary words out there, allocation, right? I mean, there are definitely a lot more businesses, a lot more stores that have popped up, and that's another thing. How do you can't fight it. So if someone opens a business down the street or across town from you, and it's barrier of entry to our business is kind of low. If you have a lot of collectibles, a lot of cards, some product, you can contact a distributor most likely and kind of open up an account and start a business, right? So what we like, my business model, or at least my approach to this, has always been, to try and ensure that the hobby is growing. I mean, the pie itself is continuing to grow, and more people are enjoying the hobby and coming into it, so that there's enough for everyone to enjoy. The people that I try to avoid are the collectors that come in for a quick buck and buy is like, what should I invest in? Like those are kind of the things that you want to avoid. Like, well, I could tell you what to collect or what you like, what are your favorite teams? What are the players? What are some of the hot rookies? But, as soon as I hear people, their first question is like, what should I invest in? I mean, like, I wouldn't want to approach it from like an investment standpoint, because then you're not really enjoying yourself. You're really just looking for a return and a quick buck. And then you see a ton of that, with people going to big box stores and buying out retail product and then just flipping it to a retail store. Like we avoid buying anything. Like we get tons of offers every day especially before a few months ago, with, people buying out Walmarts and trying to sell to us, and then we can just, flip it to consumers. But, we avoid that altogether, just because it's so crazy. When the hobby was really, really hot, you could see it. Now it's cooled down a bit, but you still see a lot of that. So with regards to competitors and people coming into the hobby, I encourage it. People ask me all the time for help or suggestions or connecting with distributors, and I'm more than happy to. Ultimately, it's still a lot of work. It's a ton of work, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. You have to really, really sacrifice a lot, commit to it, and most importantly, really enjoy it, right? I mean, I love sports. If I didn't love basketball, love football and hockey, I wouldn't be able to do this either. Following up with every player, that's like, who's hot, what are the prospects, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said right off the top, you have my dream job. So, but yeah, we really appreciate your insight, especially as a hobby shop owner. And one thing you have going for you is you have the history, and your Dolly's is well known within the community. We could definitely both vouch for that. So, but yeah, what we like to do with our guests, we always try to end off with some rapid fire questions, and whatever your answer is on the top of your head, that's what we want to hear. All right. So first, what's your favorite card that you currently own?
Favorite card? I would say a Jordan rookie, Michael Jordan, 80th Fair rookie.
Classic.
Yeah.
Nice.
Grew up watching Jordan and 95, 96, 97, those years. That's what really got me into basketball and sports. Yeah.
Yeah, iconic. All right. What's the best card you pulled out of a hobby box?
Ooh, I have very bad luck. Hobby box, probably 15, 16 Premier. I opened a McDavid out of 10, but at that time it wasn't worth much.
All right. What's one thing about the hobby you don't like or you would want to see changed?
Grading. I feel like there's too much emphasis on grading. BGS 1 of 1s or whatever it may be. I just feel like it's there's just too much emphasis and too much value between, like, everyone just cares about grading and less about the card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The PSA 10 versus a 9.5, true gem, min gem. I understand, the importance of it, but I just feel like there's too much emphasis on grading, and what's like, every time I grade for someone, it's not favorable, and it's like, oh, look at the corners, they're perfect. What do you mean? So enjoy your cards, get them graded, try and get the best grade possible, obviously, but don't lose sleep over it. I think the more important thing is try and collect and think of the big picture, like, not so much about always the value, right?
Yeah, well said. I know Hyung always says, you buy the card, not the grade, right?
Buy what you love, exactly.
Buy what you love, because pop 1 today could be pop 2, could be pop 5 down the road. So if you're spending money because it's a pop 1, then like the Gretzky, for example, it was a pop 1 at one point. Now it's a pop 2, and who knows what'll be down the line. And there are certain cards, of vintage cards, that will probably never get 10s or whatnot, but still, like, a lot of times people are looking at, like, young guns these days, right? Like the pop 20,000 or whatever, 30,000, and they value it so much less than, like, a Crosby. And yeah, I guess the rarity of something matters, but these print runs are like, it's so different. The number of collectors in the industry now versus what it was 20 years ago is so different that at the end of the day, like, how much does it really matter? I don't know. We'll see, right? And that's what the market's supposed to be there to dictate.
Yeah, for sure. I have one more, but and I don't know if Hyung has one after this, but I want to know which one of our hometown Toronto teams has the best chance to win the next championship: the Maple Leafs, the Blue Jays, or the Raptors?
I think the Blue Jays, man. I'm pretty sure the Blue Jays, Hyung. You got. I don't know. I'm sure you can back me up on this. We had a really good young team, and every time I talk to someone, I wear my Blue Jays cap everywhere I go, and everyone is always like, man, we've got a good team, we got a really good young team. We got to get some pitching, and we got to play some games, most importantly. And then we'll see where our young team goes. But hopefully, they get that sorted out soon, and then we can see the Jays back on the field, because I really think we have a pretty good chance.
I said the Leafs at the beginning of the season, and everybody laughed at me. So I'm saying the Leafs before the Jays.
I mean, the Leafs, every year they kind of have a chance until they run into, like, Boston or Washington in the playoffs.
This year's different.
That's what every Leafs fan says at the beginning of the year. So I mean, we got to be right one of these years, right? I mean, can you believe it? Like, every single year, like, when it comes to the playoffs, everyone just disappears. It's like they want to get on. They want to play golf or something. Like, they can't wait to get on the golf course.
I struck a chord there.
I know, man. It's crazy.
Well, I think we said something similar for the Raptors. Every time they get into the playoffs, they just turn into another team. But we finally got one, right? So maybe the Leafs are going to pull it through. Basketball's so different from hockey, though, when it comes down to playoffs. I mean, you can get really hot. Goaltender gets really hot, and that'll carry you all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Whereas basketball, you look at injuries. Injuries is a big thing. When we play the Warriors, there's so many X factors when it comes to basketball. Hockey is also a little bit more streaky, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I love playoff anything, so I'll watch TFC playoff soccer, so MLS. So at the end of the day, I think that, like, do or die kind of games is, like, what really, really makes me love sports more than anything else. I mean, I collect Pokemon, I collect Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, all these different things, but sports has always been like, you can't write it. I mean, look at the last F1 season, right? Drive to Survive should come out, I think, tomorrow, and on Netflix, and you'll see, like, you can't even write this story. You have to kind of watch it. It's so crazy to see what happened in that last race, and even the fallout of it. It's just so insane. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's great perspective. Hyung, I don't know if you had any last questions.
Acuna or Tatis?
Acuna.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Acuna. Yeah. Braves, man, all the way. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. I just have more of his rookie. That's why. That's
You're invested.
good. Yeah, but I don't have any of that 2016 Was it 2016 Bowman Chrome? Actually, I think is Acuna in there too.
No, 2017.
Yeah, but Guerrero's in there. As well.
Guerrero as well, yeah. You probably have a few boxes at your store.
16? No. I wish, man. If you ever see Nelson, he has his own group on Facebook as well, Velocity Sports Cards.
Right.
I still remember back in the day, man. Nobody bought baseball, man. People would come in and only like real baseball hobbyists would buy baseball cards, like, and they would buy Bowman Draft, Bowman Baseball, and like Bowman Chrome. Those were the three things that ever sold. Nobody cared about like Stadium Club, Inception, Dynasty, any of that stuff. But now, I mean, everything moves. Everything is really, really popular, and everyone loves collecting different things. Even like museum collection, opening days coming out, and guys love that kind of low price point to crack boxes at 50, 60 bucks. So glad to see that everyone's kind of enjoying different, not just different sports, but different price levels, different price entry points for sports cards. So it's important. Yeah.
Nice. No, I love seeing that myself. Yeah, for sure. Especially baseball's my first love too. I think Hyung would agree as well for himself. So yeah, it's great to see baseball getting their due. And I think we just heard there's a tentative agreement, so baseball's back.
Is it? Yeah, just now.
As of today, pumped.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I didn't get the news, but thankfully, well, they said no games still through April, I guess April 12th or something.
But 162 game schedule, so we get a full season.
Yeah, I know. What do you think? 162 is a good number, or what's your take on that? Do you think they should reduce that?
As honestly, I played professional baseball, so in the minor leagues, we played 145 game schedule, and you include spring training, and it is a lot. 162 is so ridiculous, but it also weeds out a lot of players, and that's why you appreciate the GOAT type players like Trout even that more, because what they're doing at a consistent basis, and to keep that up in 15, 20 years is kind of ridiculous, so
yeah. Do you think Trout will win one before it's all said and done?
Man, I hope so, because there are so many Trout haters, and baseball is very, very different than basketball in terms of winning. Like, I just find it takes a lot more players, obviously, because there's 9 players on the field, to go in day in, day out and play every day and win something together, right? Than a team with 5. There's just a lot less players, less games, right? So I think baseball is a lot more difficult to win something as a team, just because it's not an individual sport. It's not like, LeBron James could, carry a team or whatever. It's like, you've seen it. You have Trout and Ohtani, and they can't even, finish above 500, right? So they got to figure something out, but I hope so.
Yeah, hope so.
Nice. Yeah, I hope so too. But Will, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate your insight, and no doubt we'll be seeing you soon at your hobby shop, to get our ripping fix, especially with the baseball season about to start. So yeah, thanks, Will.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Will.
Guys, thank you so much, and always appreciate the support. And love watching you guys and seeing you guys grow too. So I know you guys got an office opening up soon, so I look forward to it. I'll come visit you guys as well, and thank you guys. Have a great evening.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. All right, that was a cool interview with Will. I'm sure we'll continue to support his business because, like we just told Will, we'll definitely be ripping more hobby boxes in the near future. All right, speaking of ripping boxes, let's move on to our next segment. It's a new one we're calling Rip or Flop. So there's actually a bunch of new sports card set releases this week and next week. So I picked out several, and you tell me, Hyung, if you think the set is worth ripping or if it's a flop. All right?
Oh, man. Especially after the interview with Will.
Yeah, we should have had him on.
Yeah, exactly.
Asked him these questions. But yeah, there's a bunch. I didn't choose all of them, but we'll try to go through them quickly. First one is, Will actually mentioned this, 2022 Topps Opening Day Baseball. It's a low-end baseball pack. What do you think?
I think it's a great rip for an affordable rip. It's a great price point, and there's some cool stuff in there. I remember in 2020, for instance, Topps had a opening day Bichette with the Canadian flag, like a parallel,
cool.
right? So there's cool chases that I guess people have. So I think with Wander in there,
right.
it could be worth it, especially at that price point. I know that the true kind of people that rip Bowman and flagship Topps, they're probably going to pass on it. So I think it's a great alternative to rip that's affordable.
Yeah. As an investment or as an investor, like I'm obviously staying away from it, but
pretty much, yeah. Yeah, but I don't think we could say investing and ripping in the same sentence.
Right. We talked about that before. Yeah. Good point. Okay, next. 2021 Topps Chrome Formula 1. So the second year set of F1.
You know what? This one's tough. Part of me says no, stay off of it. But I do like the format. I do like the rarity of Formula 1, that it's not like overprinted, but we might see a little overprint on this year because of the demand. So it just will show you how valuable 2019 and 2020, Topps Chrome was in F1. So I'm going to say rip.
Okay.
At affordable prices, obviously. So at release prices.
Right. I think that's the issue, though. If you go into breaks, like it's inflated already because they're playing off the hype. So I might stay away, and I might actually look at the first year set of F1, see if there's any reduction in price, because everyone likes the new shiny thing, right? So
I think if you could get it an allocated store and buy it at I guess release prices, I think because I went to a local card show. Sorry, it wasn't even Dolly's, but it was a different card show or card store, and they had F1, the Topps Chrome, but it literally was gone within
wow, okay.
like literally minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something that if you have the chance at the right price, I think you're gonna regret it if you don't. Yeah. But I would stay away if it gets to like $1,000 a hobby
right.
box, right? So
2x, 3x, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, next one. 2021-22 Panini Prizm Premier League Soccer.
I'm in the same boat as F1. If they're affordable and you could find some, absolutely, because soccer's and F1 are big, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. So yeah. I think if you could afford it at a reasonable price, I don't think it's a bad rip. If they start pushing upwards, I don't think it's worth it. I don't know exactly who's in it, but it's always cool if you could hit like Ronaldo autos or Messi autos and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. I didn't take a look at the checklist, but if there's big hits like that, why not?
Yeah. And it's a World Cup here, so yeah, if you can get it for a good price, I'm all in with the Premier League. All right, 2021 Panini Contenders Football.
You know what? I don't riff football, but I think this is a bad thing that you're asking me, because I think I'm just gonna say rip everything because it just of course, right? Contenders is a huge set, in football as well. So I guess it all depends on what the price is and when you can get in on it, right? So with Contenders Football, I don't know. I guess who's the chase? I guess there's like Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence, and it's a big set too, like Panini Contenders. So I'm gonna say if you get a chance again, rip.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm the wrong person to ask. Just period.
But this is when we need John on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
He's more selective. But yeah, it's what you know what for me. I'd rather wait for Panini Prizm, Panini Select. Like Contenders will tie you over, but if you want to get into the higher end brands, save your money. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait for Prizm and Select. But yeah, Contenders. If you don't get an auto, then it's really not worth it. Like all the base cards are meh, right? So,
but then if you get a Trevor Lawrence auto, and that's all that matters is that chase, right? Is like they see that what that price goes on eBay. That's when it's gonna be hot, right? So yeah. I think they have enough rookies to chase that it's gonna be a pretty successful product.
Yeah, like you said, Trey Lance, Mac Jones is in that, I think, right. and Zach Wilson. All right. 2022 Leaf Vibrance. I don't know if you've heard of this set, but it's like
I have, but this is the first one. I guess I'd say I'm off of it. Okay. For me it's Leaf. Leaf used to be cool in my 1986 Fred McGriff. Not even Donruss. I guess it was Leaf.
Yeah,
that was my first introduction to Leaf, my 86 Leaf. But it's probably the last time I owned a Leaf card. Yeah. I'm gonna stay off of this one. I mean, like I said, it could be a good rip for whoever is in that, because there's stuff you could hit that are pretty cool stuff, right? So I'm not gonna say no to it because it's ripping, because we're ripping for fun, right? So
sure.
So as long as you could pull some kind of parallel, right? So
yeah. Well, I think this one is a 2-card pack. So it's like it's a super high end, and I think they're both autos.
Right. It's non-licensed, right?
Non-licensed, exactly.
Yeah.
So Otani's in it, Tatis is in it, Acuna. I think you get autos. They're all sticker autos, I believe, too. So that's an issue. But it's pretty eclectic. It's not even just baseball. It's like, Pele. He has an auto in this, so that's a huge hit.
Okay, yeah. But I'm still off of that. Like I don't know. Like for me, what's called non-licensed product is a tough one. Yeah, a tough one to swallow. So I'm off that. Yeah.
Okay. Me too. All right, great. We rifled through the list, so yeah, lots to look for.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm gonna throw a couple sets in here because one of my favorite personal sets, Topps Heritage. I think it's released today, I believe, March 11th. I guess March 11th would be tomorrow, but I believe some people are allocating the product tonight, so. It's a big release because obviously Wander Franco's there, and there's the real one autos that are a pretty heavy chase. I think it's super underrated because, like, the true hobbyists know that Heritage, like red ink autos, for instance, like a Wander Franco red ink auto would be insane, right? So, it's relatively cheap, in terms of a rip. So I think there's going to be a great chase, another Wander chase in Topps Heritage, because there's some very, very desired cards like the black parallel, the red ink auto, even the black ink auto. And then there's like the air variations, the color swaps, the true collectors like about, that old school Topps Heritage set, right? So that's releasing March 11th. So I'm super excited about that. I'll be visiting Dolly's a few times for that. And then next month, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but there's 2022 Bowman at the end of the month. So there's a lot of international big prospects. There's like people like Brady House, who didn't have an auto in Bowman drafts in 2021, Jack Leiter, Khalil Wilson, Roderick Arias. He's one of the top signing international signees this year. I think he signed for nearly $5 million. So I think there's going to be a huge chase again with 2022 Bowman, which is coming up next month. So yeah, I think there's some fun opportunity down the road for our fellow rippers and addicts.
I'm in for both of those baseball sets. Like I can't, like I've ripped several boxes of Heritage over the years, and I get absolutely nothing. Like,
you know what? Sometimes it's so bad.
It is like, yeah.
I will say this though, with Heritage, I find it's like it's either a super hot box or it's like literally you're just opening stuff and you're going through it and absolutely nothing. It's hot garbage. But then there are some times when I would open up a Heritage and in every pack there would be a purple parallel.
Wow. Okay.
Like it's a purple refractor, right? Which is like non-numbered, but it's a pretty decent hit. But I've had this multiple times, right? So there is it is fun because it's cheap, right? So I believe, I don't know what the release price is. They're probably going to jack it up anyways. So it used to be cheap, so I'm going to say. So we'll see tomorrow or next week when the show airs. We'll get a better idea.
Yeah, no, I'm all in on. That being said, I'm all in on Heritage. I buy it every single year. I don't know. Maybe, you know what? It's my birthday in a couple of days, and so I treat myself to Heritage every year.
Nice. Happy birthday.
Thanks. But I always get the white cloth. It's one of those boxes that it's an auto or relic. I always get the relic. Like,
you got it. Yeah.
Just bad luck with Heritage. But like I said, I love the cards. Like the set. It's amazing. It's just a fun rip. But yeah, hard to get the good hits sometimes. And Bowman, yeah, of course, prospecting is always fun. All right, yeah, lots and lots of products to look forward to. And, I'm sure on future episodes we'll share any hits that we get from our future rips. Hopefully we have something good to share. So we'll see. Okay, let's end off this show then with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this week's Pick One is our Hot Takes edition. So yeah, we're going to present 2 hobby hot takes, and then Hyung and I, we're going to debate on which one is more likely to happen between the 2 hobby hot takes we presented. All right, so Hyung, you want to start off?
All right, let's go. I'm going to say PSA 10. So within the next, I guess, we'll say year or so, okay, in the next trend, PSA 10 loses steam and drops in value, just in general as a whole, right? Okay. Versus SGC starts seeing a backlog and can't keep up with the new demand, and they end up becoming PSA 2.0 with 4 or 5 month wait times now. So it's either PSA 10 value loses steam. So we're saying SGC, BGS 10, or I guess Gem Mints start raising in price and PSA 10s go down in value, or SGC can't keep up with the demand and they start, having a backlog of customers where they can't, grade cards in a I guess a reasonable manner.
Yeah. The correct answer is both, but if we're going to choose one, what's more likely? I think it's going to be PSA is going to lose steam. Yeah, 2 reasons. One, we always say this, like PSA 10s are overrated.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a point where, like, why are we paying such premiums for PSA 10s? Especially with, SGC 1010s looking really nice in their tuxedo slabs, and, other grading companies being an option. So, and the turnaround times. I just got my Tyler Hero Green Prizm. The timing worked out because, Heat's number 1 or near the top, and Hero's amazing off the bench. So, and I got a PSA 10, so thank goodness for that. But the group I submitted to back then, he was doing a Facebook Live of all the cards that got submitted and came back. A lot of bulls in there. A lot of
oh man,
a lot of really cards slab junk.
Hurts.
Yeah. It's so, like, my point being, it still takes a while for PSA slabs to come back, and I think that's going to be an issue, right? That's right. You're not going to be able to make those quick flips.
No, that's definitely a good point. The reason why I brought that one up is because Raw Mints, so the Instagram Raw Mints, they come up with kind of like a weekly, kind of like a sale on a certain card. So this week they had a 2013 SP Authentic Giannis, right? And they have categories of PSA, Beckett, and SGC. Basically, the 90-day high, the 90-day low, the last 3 sales of a PSA 10, right? And then same as a BGS 9.5, which is a Gem Mint, and then an SGC 10. So when I look at the data, so for instance, in this case, the Giannis, the 90-day high for the PSA 10 was $380. The SGC 90-day high was actually $304. So for me, and then the BGS Gem Mint was $220, which is mind-boggling because it's showing a uptrend of SGC slabs, like kind of catching up, because the last 3 sales were actually higher than the PSA 10.
Yeah.
Right. So
crazy.
So for me, I actually see PSA losing steam and SGC starting to pick up, and the value in BGS Gem Mints. Right. So, but on the flip side, that's not to say the other scenario can't happen, right? Which was what did we say?
SGC 10.
SGC starts. So I sent a submission off, and the first SGC submission, it was back in literally 3 weeks. I was pumped. Okay, so I sent off another submission in February, and I did it through a third party, Mint Inc., right? And I got an email saying it was. They received it, and now it's 6 to 8 weeks, right? So I'm wondering, hey, is this starting already? Because think, everybody's seeing the value of SGC now, right? And people start seeing the value of, for instance, Wander Franco bases. They're selling for 150 SGC 10s. So people who pull out of blasters spend $33 Canadian. and potentially for Wander Franco, and they think that they could flip it, right? So a lot more people are on that frame of mind.
Sure.
Right. So that's why I kind of brought it up, because I see the backlog happening because a lot of people are starting to submit those cards that are kind of affordable, but they'll make a profit essentially, or they're trying to make a profit. Right. So I see that happening and slowing down kind of, again, the SGC, because it's all supply and demand. Right. So money shifting. And then I'm worried that the demand at SGC will be tough internally to basically manage and correctly be able to operate. So that was my deep thinking on this. But yeah, so you picked PSA loses steam, right?
Yeah,
so
and I was gonna say, like, SGC, like, they've been really great just being on top of it, but I didn't know what you just said. Like, it looks like there's already a delay.
And by no means am I saying like SGC has been phenomenal, right? And but that's the first thing I noticed, and I was wondering that anyways, right? So it's just a speculation. By no means am I bad mouthing SGC, because they've been awesome, right? So I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go PSA 10 loses steam, because I see that already happening. And even my purchases, I just don't see some value in PSA 10s, right? It's like you know what? I'd rather buy the BGS 9.5. I wouldn't have imagined I'd ever say that. But at certain price points as a buyer, I'm looking for value, right? So that's where I see extreme value is the BGS and SGCs.
I agree completely. All right, so we're aligned with that pick one. All right, so my pick one is, we'll see a spike in celebrity autograph trading cards selling for six figures.
Holy.
Versus, we'll see a spike in digital NFT trading cards selling for six figures.
You're really on this celebrity game, eh? You really...
I thought, that's the theme of the show, of this episode.
I seen a Kim Kardashian auto list. I don't know if it's sold, but it was a PSA 10. I didn't even know Kim Kardashian had a card, first of all, yet. But it was a dual auto grade. Yeah. And I don't know if it's sold or the buyer was asking $14K, I think. Mm-hmm. So I could see celebrity autos doing that right away, right? Okay. But then I could also see NFTs going crazy, whether they're gonna stick. You see the Bored Ape, for instance. Like, we're talking like serious money. And the good thing with collectibles is, the blockchain can include a card, for instance. So you have a one-of-one card that includes a blockchain technology that has NFTs attached to it, the utility, right? So there's that too, where I could see card collectors saying, you know what, this is the way of the future, and somebody says, you know what, the NFT route is the way to go, right? So I see both sides. With what actually is going to happen, I'm going to say the NFTs are going to hit some stupid okay. numbers. I think a lot more realistic because we've seen it. I just think it might take some time for the celebrity autos. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But that, like we talked about, the zerocool might spike that, right? So
yeah, and that's why I brought it up too, because I knew we were going to talk about zerocool off the top. Right. So that's putting focus and attention on that segment of the hobby. But I agree with you too. So it looks like we're going to both agree on both our pick ones. Like, I'm into NFTs too, and some of the prices is just super volatile. And right. Candy Digital just launched something called Sweet Futures, and it's essentially name, image, likeness release. So right. of college basketball players, and
right. I think I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's essentially their kind of like draft rookie card. As an NFT, and if you think about it, if NFT trading cards becomes a bigger thing, and the player becomes a stud, this is his first digital asset, right. Digital trading card, and when it's on the blockchain, you just mentioned, and some NFT prices are insane already, so I could right. see trading cards making that leap as well. But I see both trending upwards, to tell you the truth, in our opinion. All right, good show. Thanks again for everyone listening and who have subscribed to our show. We really appreciate you guys tuning in each week. And if you did enjoy the show, it helps us out a lot if you guys give us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the pod, as well as our Instagram page at Cards to the Moon, all one word, to get notified of new episodes that drop and fun polls we like to put out now and then. All right, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you again next Tuesday. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.